All right. This afternoon I have Scott Frauenheim, right? Did I say that right?
Perfect.
Scott is the CEO of Leap Innovations and Distinctive Schools, which is a school management organization. Leap Innovations is a new way of learning.
Yep.
Is that the best way to?
Yeah,
best
it's a great way to say it. Yeah.
We met 4 years ago?
Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago, maybe during COVID. Do you recall?
I do.
You want to recall that?
I do.
That meeting?
Yeah,
unfortunate meeting for
we
you.
had just purchased a house and we were sitting in the sunroom, and I said, I definitely think I hear water spraying under the floors. And I called another company because I was scouring the internet, and instead of calling the first recommended company, I called the second recommended company. I'll never do that again. You were the first recommended. I called the second recommended. The second recommended came and told me that I had a small leak in my bathroom air vent or fan. And so I didn't buy it because I saw mold spreading through our basement ceiling very rapidly. And I called you, and I think you were on a job site or coming back from a couple days.
Yeah, we were working from all the freezing ice damming.
Yeah.
I was going on, I think, almost 3 days straight. And I talked to you, it was like 7 or 8 in the morning. I remember when I was driving, and you asked me to come out. And I'm like, can I please just come tomorrow?
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, I got the owner of the company on the emergency services line. And I think I said, I don't know if you can come tomorrow. I definitely hear water spraying. And you were like, okay, I'm on my way. I'll come over and check it out.
Yeah, I would have sent somebody else, but we were in emergency mode. So went out there and we found a hole for a crawl space that was like 4 foot by 3 foot. I mean, it was tiny.
Yeah.
Probably smaller than that.
Old hot water heater line or heated floor line?
You had an very, I will say, interesting setup. It was an open loop floor heating system that was heated up by your water heater.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never seen anything like it. We'll never see anything like it again.
You say that a lot when you have to come to my house.
We'll leave it at that. It was just an interesting setup. I'm sure some sort of special engineer, an engineer had to own that house.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. You guys helped us out a ton. And literally, you had guys there within, I think, like 15 minutes. And next thing you know, our house was turned upside down, and you uncovered hell behind our walls and under our ceilings. You saved us.
There was a hole in your subfloor.
Yeah.
That I think you probably at some point was going to just fall through.
Yeah. So you guys were very patient with us after, I think, 3 rounds of insurance period waiting times. And
so that's what a lot of people don't understand when they have an insurance claim.
Yeah.
His insurance claim isn't, Jeff, come do this. Here's money. Here's a transaction. Here's a contract. Get it done. It's a long, drawn-out process.
It was scary, too, the first time going through it.
So if you remember, they denied your claim.
Twice, right?
Twice.
Yeah.
And then we hired an engineer, and we said, no, this is a coverable claim. Had the engineer come out, and they, on the 3rd time, accepted your claim. It was a big one.
Yeah.
So that's what I think a lot of people don't understand on insurance claims. They want to know why it's taking so long. They think it's the contractor or the restoration company.
Yeah.
Unless you're saying like, hey, I'll write you a blank check, go do it.
Yeah, which we were not in the position to do.
You want to, you have to be patient in those situations and work through with the contractor and with the insurance company, because it's not fun. They delay it. They try to get people to say, okay, I'll pay for it myself. In your case, they denied it twice, and we kept going. So I think if there's anything that people take from this, it's if you have an insurance claim, you got to be patient.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys were very patient with us, but you did an incredible job, and we love seeing OC trucks all over Crest Creek now. Every time we're driving down the street, we see your trucks everywhere now.
We are so the clubhouse there.
Yeah,
we handle a lot for the clubhouse. They trust us with that, and a lot of the neighbors now, and obviously Ryan and a couple other neighbors refer us. So it's that's like our hometown Crest Creek neighborhood.
Everyone loves OC. Yeah.
So this is an interesting topic for me because I was a horrible student.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn about this because I thought the way that I learned in school was awful. It was bad for someone like me. you are in a new way of learning. Explain to us what LEAP is, and then what a distinctive school is.
Yeah. So Distinctive Schools was founded about 15 years ago with a goal of really trying to transform education. And so I moved to Chicago for my first teaching job and was hired by Distinctive Schools to be a physical education and health teacher. And I've grown up in Distinctive Schools since that day of teaching my first class there on the north side of Chicago. I was fortunate enough to be the CEO for the past 6 years. And so Distinctive is a school management organization that really drives day-to-day management and oversight and operations of charter schools across Chicago. And so charter schools are publicly funded charter schools, but with private management. And so the ability to really move outside of bureaucracy and a lot of hoops to really deliver for kids and families what they need minute to minute and day to day. And so being able to do that from a public charter school standpoint really allows families to have choice in the schools that they're going to. Charters were founded in the late 90s to really compete with traditional public districts who were underperforming, with the idea and the mindset that if you put a charter school into a neighborhood or a community with underperforming schools, you start to up the ante around competition and choice for families and giving families that choice. The goal was and has been for charter schools to help traditional local schools or district schools really evolve and grow and be innovative. And so Distinctive has been doing that. We're excited to share that, our schools are outperforming local community schools where we exist.
Like private schools or public schools?
Public schools.
Okay.
Yep. And so it's been an exciting journey. Culture, joy, innovation has really been the theme of our work in our charter schools. And then about 2 years ago, we acquired Leap Innovations. Leap Innovations is a personalized learning education innovation partner. So we go in and push into schools, districts, private, parochial, traditional, public, district, charter, and we support them alongside them in customizing professional development for their teachers, bringing innovative tools and resources into the classroom to really redesign what learning can look like in the new generation.
So you're solving a lot of problems.
Trying to, Jeff. Trying to.
And you have a unique view on it. Let's go back to the beginning. How education's not for everybody.
Yeah.
My wife was in education. She was a teacher. And I think the people who are in education are a lot like nurses. They're giving a lot and getting a little.
Yep.
Why are you so passionate about it? Let's go back. There's something there that why you were really passionate about making a difference in others' lives.
Yeah. Education has been in my blood and my roots since I was a child, since the day I was born. I was born into a family of educators. My dad was an educator.
7 kids.
7 kids. Yeah, 6 kids in 6 years. And then 16 years later, they had me. My siblings say I was an oops. My parents always said a pleasant surprise.
You were the one that just didn't have to follow any rules.
Yeah, exactly. I got away with everything. I stole the car. I drove before anyone did. I got to go on all the trips with my parents as they were thinking about retirement and more. So yeah, for sure spoiled, but I had a great
where'd you grow
childhood. Up? Somerville, New Jersey.
Okay.
Yep. So central New Jersey, about 45 minutes from New York, 45 minutes from Philadelphia. My dad grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Aspinwall specifically. Left Aspinwall to go to college at Rutgers, played on the first undefeated college football team at Rutgers, and was an all-star and did incredible things at Rutgers. Where he met my mom.
Too.
Loved, yeah. And he loved, has that same love back for Rutgers. He met my mom there at a Fiji fraternity party in a stairwell, is what we know, and the rest was history. They moved to Somerville, New Jersey, and had my one brother, and my dad was a student teacher. He was an education major, so he finished Rutgers at football and education and wanted to go teach. And so
what did he teach?
He taught physical education and health.
Okay.
Yep.
Every football player's dream.
Yeah, totally. And he was actually at a public school, and then a private school reached out to that public school and said, "Hey, we're looking to start this new high school, and we're looking to start a football program and an athletics program. We need a scrappy, gritty person to come and help us launch it all." And he went, and they hired him. And 52 years later, same parking spot, same office. He was the athletic director, head football coach, and vice principal for 52 years.
A very routine guy.
Yeah, totally. Totally. He drove a big Cadillac. the ones with the fins. I forget the Broem or.
He's the same guy whose coffee starts at the same time.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yep. But he
discipline.
was he overcame laryngeal cancer. He had to reteach himself how to speak as a coach and an educator, and so.
At what age?
41. Early 40s, late 30s. He started with the symptoms and then lost his voice box, and so he had to reteach himself how to speak in a profession that demanded it. But he taught us a lot about community and about bringing people together and about community and culture being the heart of everything he did as a coach, as an educator, as a dad. And so education was in my roots, in my blood. I ran from it. I was like, there's no way I'm following in Dad's footsteps. I'm going to go chart my own path. And I went to school for sports and entertainment and event management.
What was your dream? So I went to 2 semesters of school for sports management.
Okay.
I had no clue what I wanted to do.
Same.
But sports was just my thing. I'm like, sports is cool. I'll find a job. Obviously, it didn't work out. I hated school. Was off. And this is why I think it's such an awesome topic, because I didn't like the way school was taught and the way I learned. What did you think was going to be your job? I genuinely want to know, because I had no idea what I
had a bunch of big themes in my head. I imagined like a stadium. There was a picture of a stadium in my head post-graduation from college.
Your office was at the end of the end zone.
Totally. Glass office looking into the stadium. Events, concerts, front stage passes, like that type of vibe. And I loved events. I loved hospitality. I worked in the restaurant industry, through high school and college. And so I just had my eyes set on something within hospitality, sports, entertainment, and event management. Went through 4 years of school, loved it, had a great time, was in Rhode Island, moved home after college, and my first job home was substitute teaching.
Where'd you go to college?
Johnson & Wales in Rhode Island. So a small hospitality school.
So you, as far as I know, you're not an East Coast jerk. So tell me when did that change? How did you get to Chicago, and how old were you? What happened? So
I'll circle back, remind me on just the importance of educators right now. But getting to that path, I realized very quickly. Moved home to New Jersey, first job, substitute teacher, went right back to education. I was teaching a senior health class as a long-term sub that May. And it was like I was 21 and the kids were 18.
So you were a senior when they were a freshman.
What's happening here? This is out of control. Who put me in this classroom? But it was eye-opening just around the relationships, and I felt like I was home, like back in a classroom and back teaching and watching my dad and growing up with my dad in schools and in education and friends with the lunch ladies and driving. My mom drove the school bus our whole life, and so I felt home again post college. And I was like, maybe I do want to teach. Maybe I don't want to go into sports and event management. And so I started teaching, substituting in New Jersey, and I knew I wanted to go do something in an urban setting. I wanted to make sure that there was high impact. I had a real push to want to give back to communities that have been, marginalized and or more just needed opportunities to be able to flourish. And so I went to Chicago for a weekend about 18 years ago to visit a friend.
What month was this?
It was summer.
Okay,
it was
so
August.
It definitely
was Lollapalooza weekend.
When it was snowing.
Totally.
Yeah.
I had no visibility to the snow or the cold or the wind, but I came for a Lollapalooza weekend, and I absolutely fell in love with Chicago. I ended up going to Filene's basement on a Sunday morning, bought a suit, went on Craigslist, found a PE teacher job opening on Craigslist, went to the interview Monday morning. I want to say 06. Yeah, 06, 07. Went to the interview that morning, was hired by noon, went home to New Jersey, told my massive family that I was just on my way to Chicago, and I packed my moving truck and was on my way. I started the school year there that August and September.
It was a school in Chicago?
Yeah. Yep. On the north side. Yep. My first teaching job there. And so teaching is my passion. I loved it, and had the opportunity to think about what education could look like. And I was also the same student as you. I was totally disengaged. I was totally uninterested in going to school. I think I had more tardies than I think I hold a school record for how late I was and or absent I was at all times. But knew that I could think about new ways of education for kids and giving them the opportunities that I wish I had, during school. And educators are freaking awesome. You brought this up around your wife, and so many are leaving the profession right now.
They are. I remember being in high school, and I was very appreciative of the teachers.
Yep.
I was respectful. I was not a jerk, but I remember reaching out to a couple after, I don't want to say, within the past 5-10 years, I reached out to some teachers and I'm like, I'm sorry the way I acted.
Yeah.
I can't believe you're dealing with what you're dealing with now. This was probably right around COVID, right before COVID. Dealing with some of the kids and some of the issues they have to deal with now, I think is much worse than when I was in school, at least. But I was so disengaged and such a nuisance in class that I made their job harder, even though I wasn't disrespectful. It was still disrespectful to make their job harder.
Yeah.
And I think it was still the old way of learning and teaching, and I need to be hands-on. I am not your person that's going to sit in a chair in a row and raise my hand. Like, it's just not. I like to figure things out immediately, try it on my own. And I think people learn differently.
Yes.
So
yes.
Seeing a lot of maybe shop classes coming back to school, I think is really cool.
Yeah.
There's a thing now called Incubator. It's a lot of school districts around the country are doing it. I'm on the advisory board for Incubator.
Nice.
And I was a coach or a teacher for it for a year. It's so cool. These kids get to learn how to build things now rather than just sit in a class. So I thought that was really cool, them introducing it. And then when I learned what you did, I thought was really cool. And I wanted to have you on because I really want to understand what their goals and how I have 5 kids.
Yeah.
What does the future of education look like? How did you start it? It was what was the company you started at?
Distinctive.
Yep. And now you purchase Leap. How did you get into Distinctive?
Yeah. So from that first teaching year, I quickly kind of grew in my profession. I had some great mentors in those first couple of years that saw a lot of talent in me. And so I had the fortunate ability to become a dean of students. So focused a lot on the behavior and the support of teachers, and saw the perspective of a lot of kids that were just like us, who were disengaged in classrooms and were not interested in what they were learning. From there, I became a principal. I was a principal for 5 years at a K-8 elementary school on the west side of Chicago. It was the best 5 years of my life, and just like getting to ground myself in community with these amazing families that chose this school for their kids, and had the opportunity to go through something called Breakthrough Schools. So we completely reimagined the school. We got a big funding grant to be able to turn it upside down and start from scratch and redesign.
What does that mean? Does that mean the way the classrooms are laid out? Does that mean like fresh paint and fresh flooring?
Yeah,
or
everything.
Are they getting new books? Are they actually getting laptops to work on?
Yep.
Or are they allowed to use calculators? What does that mean from a turn it upside down?
So personalized learning is the grounding factor there. Personalized learning and creating experiences for every single student to have a personalized experience when they come to school every day. And so that started with a lot of human design, getting teachers to understand the why, helping teachers understand why kids are learning differently, helping them see generational changes and shifts in the ways that students need and are demanding that they learn differently. Mm-hmm. And we started with space, because space was the first thing that really created and enabled the conditions for change. And so we redesigned classrooms. We allowed teachers to come to design tables to think about what does completely redesigning a classroom look like, with student input and feedback and family input and feedback. So imagine no longer 28 desks in rows facing the front of a whiteboard. Think about completely redesigned sections with centers and station rotation models and new technology invested into classrooms for kids to be able to explore and test. Yep. We had maker spaces built and designed into the school.
I want to go off on a tangent here really quick. You got funding for that. Where does that funding come from? Because I think a lot of people, that's a hot topic for a lot of people. Yep. I see, we're both in Naperville.
Yep.
My tax bill's $26,000 a year.
Yeah.
I look at it and it's 24 of that goes to the school district. 13 of it goes to the forest preserve.
Yeah.
$13, not $1,300 or $13,000.
Yeah.
Where does this money come from?
Yep.
Why do you think the taxes are so high towards the schools? Is it the maintenance? Is it the what is causing our taxes to go up on the school portion of it?
Yeah, so I can speak from a city perspective. Our funding for all of this work that I just described, reimagining, had to come from private public philanthropy dollars. And so we enhanced a lot of what we were doing through specific fundraising and grant opportunities. So we had funding in partnership through Breakthrough Schools with a lot of national donors and funders that really wanted to invest back in schools and classrooms and trusted us to think about being the trailblazers on reimagining. On the taxpayer front, being inside a school district and seeing the ins and outs of how a school district is funded, teacher compensation is becoming, increasingly more cost dependent on the taxpayer system. And so, as you
Through
can probably
the public
read,
schools?
Yep. So pensions, being able to fund pensions, being able to identify long-term sustainability of teacher pay.
Yeah, I see I think teachers are great.
Yep.
I think educators are great. I see my tax bill going up, but then I'm friends with a lot of teachers.
Yeah.
And when my wife and I first got married, she was a teacher. I never saw a check. She had her own bank account.
Sure,
So we went to file taxes for the first time. And I said, hey, do you have, your W-4s for taxes? And she gave it to me. I was like, well, do you have for the whole year?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So these teachers aren't making insane amount of money that, other industries are making. So they're sacrificing a lot for the greater good of the world
sure.
and these children in the education. And then I think about it and I'm like, but my taxes don't show they don't reflect what you get. This teacher's getting paid.
Sure.
Is it because of the pensions?
I think that has a lot to do with it.
Are we floating that? What's your opinion on it?
Yeah. So I think that there's a sustainability crisis here that needs to be unpacked and figured out. And this is, I think, a national issue of just how do we pay teachers better in the current, and how do we maintain and sustain teacher sustainability for the commitment they are making to education for the long term. And so I think that pensions are public service and public will for teachers, and they deserve that. And we have to figure out a way in education to make it sustainable. And that's going to take our labor partners, that's going to take our district leaders across the country to come together and figure out sustainable ways through state funding in the public school setting. And I will say the same for, there's a new report out that's saying 30% of teachers are self-reporting that they're going to leave the career in the next 2 years. And higher ed is saying that they
nationally?
can't. Yeah. And so higher ed is saying that they can't even replace that at the pace that teachers are leaving.
Because the pay structure is changing?
Pay, burnout, fatigue,
the way
shifts in accountability.
Right?
Yep. All of that. Yep.
Do you think the way these pensions are going, are they changing the structure of how these current teachers can get a pension?
I think there's fears there, right? I think there's fears around the sustainability. And again, I'm not a pension expert here by any means. And I know that.
I just know if the structure of the payment, if you knew. If it was changed.
No, I don't. But I do think that I do know that there's a sustainability issue in making sure that we can protect the future of our teachers and making sure that they feel empowered and to feel like they feel invested in. I think the other thing in districts nationally is just the capital improvements and the capital cost of a lot of what's happening. And I'm wondering if that's going to shift a lot in this new era and this new reimagining of education with brick and mortar schooling.
Yeah, you kind of see it with offices, right?
Yeah.
A lot of office space going down, people working differently.
Yes.
Do you think, I was a bad student because the way I learned differently.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe more teachers will get back involved if there's a new way of teaching, a new way of learning, in a healthy growth and a healthy kind of lifestyle for everybody involved, the teachers, the parents, the students, because what's happening with technology, what's happening with AI, I think it's all different.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think
it's a lot to unpack.
Yeah. The game is changing. And so broadly here, just across the education ecosystem, personalized learning, creating personalized learning experiences for kids start with relationships. And so I believe that good teachers will always be needed. That is a true belief of mine. I think that the education profession can get reinvigorated around the use of technology and the new infusion of artificial intelligence. And I think that teachers need to be at the table as we're designing this work. And it cannot be done to teachers and kids. kids. It has to be done with teachers and kids. And by the way, parents and families need to be very much a part of that design work, right? We can't just go into classrooms and say, this is what it's going to exactly look like without the input and the feedback and the culture and the joy and the satisfaction of both teachers and kids in those new settings.
Do you think COVID was like a kind of like a line in the sand moment where it was like, all right, this is enough, and we saw how people learned from home or didn't learn from home, and there's that little gap of like 2 or 3 years where I'm seeing it now of kids coming out of college. I had a conversation with a young man the other day, and he's like, I'm not good at this because we were doing homeschooling essentially. And I took the hardest college classes online because I knew I could just skate by. And obviously it didn't help them. So do you think that COVID was a line in the sand for this change that is needed? Yeah.
So I think COVID was a double-edged sword. In the first way, I think that COVID created this opportunity where digital natives in this new generation were able to flip on a dime. I will give education that credit that overnight we were able to switch completely virtual, for especially those that had technology and had the devices and had been implementing one-to-one devices. Everyone flipped to remote. It was a blink of an eye, flip of a dime. We went right to it, and kids started learning and teachers started teaching in a remote setting. Now, did we do it perfectly? I don't know. But on the flip side of that, it took us backwards at least 5 years from
Isn't
an
it crazy
academic
though
progress.
How quickly everyone adapted?
Yes.
To
when forced
hey, this
to
is
do
how
it.
we're doing. When you're, if you said in a classroom, in 2018, you're like, we're gonna think about this. It would have been such a train wreck. And you just rip the Band-Aid off and
totally.
And they did it
Overnight.
And everyone, essentially overnight.
And so the technology infrastructure, the flipped remote learning, we learned, we pivoted, we went through it all, we iterated, but it was design work. We were getting feedback constantly, we were pivoting, and being that iterative in the way that we were showing up to education is what needs to happen every single day in the way that we're educating. On the flip side, that double-edged sword is, our academic progress has gone backwards. So the national NAEP scores, so that's used to measure our education progress across the public school, infrastructure across the country, is still reporting 2 to 5 points below pre-pandemic levels. So we haven't even recovered from the pandemic. We need to get the
COVID kids out of school.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, Jeff. But otherwise, the academic recovery is a real issue aligned to that teacher burnout too, because accountability has not changed. The accountability measures and the bar are still high. What we're seeing now, though, is so many folks have talked about college and to and through college and getting kids academically ready to go compete in college. And now we're seeing all the language shift, which I'm excited about, around college and or career and or pathways for kids that college might be not the pathway for right out of high school and post-secondary.
Yeah, I graduated high school a semester early, went to a junior college.
Nice.
And then went in the pipe fitters, went back to college to play football. Was like, got hurt. I'm like, I'm going back into the world.
Yeah.
School wasn't for me. I don't think school is for everybody. And when I was in school, like, you need to go to college. You need to go to college. I don't think everyone needs to go to college. I think lawyers and doctors, and there's specific things you need to go to college for. And people learn differently too. I learned hands-on.
Sure.
Some people learn in a classroom and then they can do it.
Yep.
That's where I think LEAP comes in, where it's a different way of learning for everybody.
Yes.
If in a very short manner, how would you describe LEAP right now to somebody like me who has no clue what it is?
Yep. So LEAP Innovations, education innovation partner. We push in to school districts and we help train teachers on new ways of teaching students.
All school districts?
Yep.
Public?
Yep. Public, private, parochial, religious-based, non-religious-based. We work with anyone and everyone who serves kids. And our goal is to impact more kids and give them a really innovative educational experience. And so we start with relationships. We have a learner profile. So teacher and student need to have a strong relationship if they're going to have magical moments in their classroom around learning. And then we have a deep focus in that LEAP learning framework to really drive application, hands-on, relevance, agency. So students are really taking ownership of their learning in their classroom. We believe at LEAP that we are going to prepare students for college, but that is their decision on whether they are going to go to college. And we want to also create experiences for kids, especially in secondary settings, but even earlier now in middle school and elementary school, to give them experience to real world life and opportunities and ways that they could apply their interest or their passion or their skills into what they might want to do. And so you're seeing a reemergence right now on CTE programming in a lot of the middle school and the secondary programming. So career and technical education. Career and technical education, meaning bringing real world jobs and opportunities into the schools. And so trades as a real example of giving high school experiences, internships, externships in the high school setting, where they might take, a certain amount of classes required by, state mandates in the morning, but then go out and be in industry, in partnership, in mentorship with different partners.
So we talk a lot about the student and again, I know a lot of educators.
Yeah.
I respect the heck out of them. I know there are going to be educators listening to this that I'm friends with that I'm going to share this with. All my teachers, I am passionate about this. Who didn't think I was?
Yeah, I love that.
Let's say a teacher really likes what they're hearing, but they want to learn more. Also, maybe their union isn't in with LEAP. Is there something LEAP does for the teachers? Maybe they can reach out to LEAP or they can get help from LEAP for their classroom or ideas or innovations. I know you guys are strategically partnered with different districts and different schools and different government standpoints, but if a single teacher is like, I thought that was a really cool podcast, I want to look into it more.
Yes.
How do you help them? Educate them, maybe give them some ideas for their classroom, or how do they get involved, or they one day want to work at LEAP? What does that look like?
So leapinnovations.org is the best way to get in touch with us. We've got some really awesome opportunities that are free for educators. So workshops, webinars, and sessions for them to do their own independent learning. So every teacher has to have continuing education, credits for their own licensure. Mm-hmm. And so we help teachers with that in a personalized way.
They can do continuing ed with you?
Yep, totally.
Great. Okay.
In addition to that, we've seen in many of our district or school engagements that a teacher has actually brought LEAP in based on their interest or coming to one of our events or joining one of our webinars. We'll be able to partner with them and then be brought into their school or district to think about scaling, broader strategy or implementation across their school or setting. And so, we believe that teachers can drive and have that same agency in their own learning at the same time that we're partnering with districts.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So they can get involved with LEAP on their own too.
Yeah. Okay. We've got a beautiful mix of all types of schools, and from each school or district, they'll send teams or cohorts to us to do some professional learning. So we're doing this cool thing right now called the Pilot Network. So school teams, we've got Catholic schools, we've got parochial schools, we've got a Jewish day school, we've got charter schools that are coming to us. We're helping them identify some opportunities of practice in their own school. So they're looking at data, they're looking at their interests, they're looking at one of their opportunities within what their parents and students are telling us, and then we're matching them with some really cool education technology partners, tools, apps, resources to bring into their school and help them with implementation and fidelity of implementation.
On your side in LEAP, from LEAP's perspective, I guess, and from me as just a regular consumer of the world, can you explain to someone like me, if we're sitting down having a coffee, the difference between a charter school, a private school, and a public school?
Yeah. So LEAP is more agnostic to just working with anybody, but for the purpose of that delineation with those, a private school is usually going to be tuition based. Private or Catholic school is going to be, or religious school is going to be tuition based, where families are paying a tuition to attend a school or have some sort of subsidy or scholarship to attend that school. Are not going to be publicly funded as of now, except there's a big movement right now, as I'm sure you've heard, on vouchers in certain states, where a tax-paying individual can receive a voucher to go attend a Catholic or a private school or a Jewish or religious-based school. So that's a Catholic school or a religious-based school. A charter school is going to be a public charter school. However, there are some private charter schools now where you can apply tuition for and to attend. But a charter school is going to be publicly funded but privately managed, either by a school management organization or by an individual local school-based board. And then a public traditional school is going to be state funded, led by a district, state ran, and state supported.
Got it.
And so funding will pass through the state level to charter schools, but
Okay.
funding does not pass through currently in some states to private schools.
Got it. Okay. So as I'm a public school kid, I learn differently.
Yep.
As I said, we would open up textbooks. We
Yep.
would open up. I mean, I had one typing computer class, which was probably the most useful class in my day-to-day life.
Yep.
Now, in the construction world that I'm in, there's guys who are 60.
Yep.
There's guys who are, I'm 34, and then there's people who are now younger at 21.
Sure.
The difference in education and the ability to use technology
Yes.
is so wide.
Mm-hmm.
And now in construction, if you don't use technology, if you don't use the tools like AI, you're really falling behind. How is Leap kind of closing that gap as the world goes more of a tech world? How are you helping the students of today be successful when they get out of school? And how do you know that, it's going to help?
Yeah. So students don't want to necessarily want to learn differently. They're demanding that they learn differently. And I think any educator or if you have children are going to tell you, we are teaching right now the first generation of digital natives that have never lived any second of their life without Google, without social media, without smartphones or YouTube or TikTok. And so as we're educating these students, they're getting this short form, fast-paced, on-demand learning, just like we are as adults, every single minute
Short
of every
form
single
social
day.
media.
Yeah.
They're
All day. And so then we're transporting them into a classroom. And many of our classrooms, unfortunately, across the country are, not all of them, but many of them are more traditional in setting where they're opening textbooks or opening curriculum that are not relevant to them, that are not relevant to real world examples of what they might do with that information or with that context. And so Leap's really focused on creating first relationships and then applied knowledge alongside the technology. We still believe in that human-centered piece and those relationships and that culture driving everything that we do, but the technology is totally enhancing the learning experience and personalizing the learning experience for kids. And now, for the past decade or plus, it's been education technology. So programs that are online or on the computer for kids to have their own journeys or their own pathways or their own games, gamification of learning. But now with artificial intelligence, we're seeing totally expanded ways that students have on-demand access again to what they need to learn, when they need to learn it, and where they need to learn it. And teachers must adapt, or else we're going to even see that divide and that gap getting wider and wider by the day.
I think everyone has their own superpower that they're really good at and something they love to do.
Yep.
Something that I'm good at is networking. Starting this podcast was tough for me because I don't like being on camera. I just don't like it. But I think one of the reasons I did it was now more than ever are relationships like the most important thing.
Yep.
So we're going to a technology-based learning format where, you come home. My dad used to call it the idiot box. You come home, play the idiot box. We were learning. I mean, now I use those joysticks now, flying drones and things like that.
Yeah.
How are you guys forcing students to communicate or teaching them that communication is important while you're still telling them to use technology? How does that, I know that that's not your job to really tell me that or teach that, but I think it's important that kids learn to communicate now more than ever. Because when I talk to a young kid, they don't smile, their head's down, not in their phone. They're just not confident.
Yep.
Right. So how do you create that confidence in somebody as they're using technology and more reliant on technology? You hear people talking with ChatGPT and having these friendship relationships with computer. How is Leap going to help kind of bring that full circle?
Yeah, so I think our kids are overloaded with information. And I still know to this day, working with kids and working with teachers, that they're craving that social connection still. So this generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, while they're technology savvy and they're driving a lot of their technology advancements, they are craving well-being and belonging. We're hearing that from every focus group that we do, every listening tour that we do. Please don't let the AI overtake our classrooms or overtake our experiences. So the social aspect of school, I think, is still very important for folks if done well. There is also a mental health crisis right now across education in the way that students, just like you mentioned, are accessing or using some of this technology to be dependent on. There's also a lot of real risks for kids right now around privacy and other related aspects of some of this AI work and some of the technology work overall. And so as we navigate all that, it's important that we teach the kids about what that means, what that looks like, when the right opportunities are to use AI, when they aren't in AI. And so we are very much grounding ourselves in belonging and making sure students feel excited and belonging in the classroom with their teachers and with their peers, and then using AI, using technology as a true, co-pilot. And so think about, kids being the pilot of their plane, and the technology and the AI really enhancing what they're doing with a really strong co-pilot next to them that is moving the gears and figuring out the flight patterns and figuring out what that student might need, but that student's still in control of their learning, and us helping educators position students to understand all the risks, all the opportunities, but being able to drive through that, carefully.
Yeah, I'm glad students are being educated on that.
Yeah.
Because there's some, in the real world, and
For sure.
I know you see this too, you will see people who aren't familiar with technology and aren't familiar with how large language model works. Yep. And how AI and ChatGPT are working, and you see them use it to respond with an email, and it's hilarious. If I see that, I just delete the email. You're not getting a response from me.
Yeah.
It's kind of like seeing on social media, if somebody puts a post up with AI, like it's not genuine. I'm gone with it. See, learning how to use it, learning how to use it and manage with your everyday life, and not just be who you are. You still need your genuine voice. I think hopefully you can create a class for some older people that
totally
so they know how to use this. Sorry, people that are listening to this and they use ChatGPT to write all their emails now, but that's not what it's for.
We're on to you.
Yeah, it's not what it's for. You're wasting all of our energy. My electric bill's so high. So students who, is there any sort of statistics for students who are being taught with the methods of leap innovations versus students who are not, or just in something else?
So we've got the LEAP engagement survey. It's another way educators can interact with us. And so we do a pre and a post assessment of how students feel in their classroom. So it's perception data that students and teachers report to us. We've got a validated and vetted survey tool that's aligned to our LEAP learning framework. And so we can measure the effectiveness and the efficacy of a personalized learning classroom. So what does that experience look like? What are they learning? How are they interacting? What's their sense of belonging? How much ownership do they have over their learning? Are they just sitting and getting from their educator all day? Or are they hands-on in collaboration with their peers? Back to your earlier point. And so we're helping schools and teachers and districts really measure the effectiveness and the growth in their innovative learning experience. And so as schools are looking to innovate and transform, we're helping them measure what that looks like based on student feedback and teacher feedback in classrooms. And that's been really powerful for us to look at other multiple measures way to celebrate the success of schools and districts across the country. So much has been based on academic accountability. So literacy and math scores, literacy and math achievement and proficiency. And while those are all very important from an educator's perspective, there's other ways that we need to be measuring effectiveness of what a school model has provided or contributed to a student's experience. And so, we mentioned CTE programming earlier, but engagement. Are kids engaged? Do they have joy coming to school? Are they interested in what they're learning about? And so I think we can do better as a country of finding multiple measures way to really celebrate the success of school models in addition to the academic performance.
The difference of academics from 2018, 2019 to 2025 are huge. Yeah. Huge. I think a lot of it was books, still textbooks, and now it's a lot more technology-based computer learning, do you think the gap between 2025 and 2027 is going to be larger than the gap between 2019 and 2025?
I think we're recovering. I think that the pandemic definitely had an academic recovery period that has been a lot longer than any of us thought it was. I think also people forget that the pandemic even happened, and that for 2.5 more, sometimes 3 years, kids were completely remote and missed 1 and 2 full grade levels of their entire social and academic journey. Like, we just forget, and we just kind of stop talking about it because it was in the rearview mirror. And it had so much impact on students' experience. And so as kids are graduating and they missed kindergarten, or they missed first grade just completely, or both of those grades completely based on how long a school stayed closed, et cetera, there was a real recovery period. And I think we're coming out of it. And I have real optimism that as a country, we are on our way up and on our way out of that recovery period. And with the use of AI, when done well, and with the use of really strong tutoring models, with a really strong model of integration of ed tech tools and resources, that we can come out of that faster.
Do you have any worries of, like, what worries you most about this whole tech thing? Because it's not all upside, right? There is some downsides to it. What worries you most? You know, when you're thinking about, hey, did I make the right move? Hey, what are we still down the right path of the the right purpose of why we're here? What's kind of playing in the back of your head? Like, hey, what kind of worries you on this?
Yeah, so a couple things is the digital divide that you mentioned earlier, just how big that gap's getting. And so we've got teachers that are, asking us what the letters are that we're saying when we say ChatGPT, and they've never heard of it before, all the way to like teachers and students completely integrating AI into their learning every minute of every day. I think that divide really worries me if we're not paying attention to it and making sure that we're bringing our educators and our schools and our systems along on the journey together, and that we don't get 5 years out and say, oh my gosh, we left a whole bunch of people behind, or that kids didn't have access in an equitable way to other kids that maybe had access. I think the other fear for me is that we don't do this work in a human-centered, human design way, and we let the technology try to take over. I think that will be a real failure for us if we don't do that together in partnership with educators, in partnership with kids. I think teachers can become learning facilitators in the next 3, 5, 7 years and rethink the real impact they can have with kids in new ways. But if we don't do it with them and we do it to them, it's going to be pretty devastating.
I had that conversation with somebody this morning over breakfast. I said, a lot of jobs are going to be facilitators rather than doers, because the technology is going to take over. What is Leap's vision of bringing AI to life? Like, what does that mean to them? And I have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah. So we want to enhance teaching and learning.
Okay.
We want to give teachers really awesome, productive, efficient tools to enhance their craft and to enhance their profession. Like I said earlier, teachers are amazing and they have had to do a lot on their own. And so how might we use technology and artificial intelligence to just power them and fuel them to be even better for our kids in our schools? I think for students, in the same way, how do they enhance their learning but not replace their learning? And how do they enhance their connections but not replace their connections?
So my follow-up question to that is, how do you think and why do you think students are different from when like your parents were teachers than to today's students? Because you were a teacher recently when technology just you were a teacher when the iPhone just came out.
Yeah.
So what is there's a fundamental difference between them.
Yep.
What do you think that is? And then what do you think that looks like going forward?
Teaching right now is the hardest that teaching has ever been in the history of teaching. Your
parents used to be able to beat kids with a stick.
Yeah, we're definitely not doing that. But
some of them need it though, right?
The influence of social media, access to information, recordings, videos, social media influence on what kids perceive as reality has made teaching so hard. And I think the other hard piece here is, how do we create parent and educator relationships that are thriving and in unison. And so that's my first look back when you ask like my childhood and watching, like my parents were co-conspirators with my teachers. They were on the same page. They were aligned. They were united. There was a lot of trust. And without parent and family and teacher trust, I worry. I just worry about kids' experience, and I worry about how do we create systems that are trusted to do the best work for kids. And that's been challenged a lot. And I recognize that across the country, and that's just sad, and I worry about it.
So what does personalized learning really mean? How are you using AI to bring it to life? So I guess the real question is, how are we using it in a healthy manner? What are healthy ways teachers should use it? And then what are ways, when should students be using it? For example, we're building a tech company, and if I told my developer, hey, you can only use AI, well, it wouldn't get built because there are some context and functions that need to be put in. And if I said, hey, you cannot use AI, it would take 10 years to build, and that's why the cost of building these apps years ago was so much money, because it was so much labor intensive. So what are some healthy ways teachers should be using it? And then when should students be using AI? And that's what exactly we're talking about now is AI.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence. What does it look like?
Yeah. So personalized learning is really the strategies to be able to bring the AI into the classroom. And so in our work around personalized learning, it's really around learner-led, learner-demonstrated, learner-focused work that teachers are supported by us to do. AI is the tool, right? So we've got the strategy and the tool. On the AI front, we believe the magic has always been the learner. And in a classroom setting, in an educational experience, the magic is the learner. And so in your example, the software engineer is probably your magic, right? He's got context or relevance and the information and the knowledge and the experience to go build something for you. The AI is, like I said earlier, the co-pilot or the enhancement, and really being able to test and modify and structure and to produce some of this stuff at such a faster pace and a faster speed. I believe in that human-centered piece, and we believe at Leap in that human-centered piece is that the product that you would get that would be just AI-driven is totally garbage in the way that you're thinking about your software and in the way that we're helping our kids learn. Without that relevance, without that context, without that institutional knowledge, the output is not going to be anything that is worth anything. And so we're really helping students identify how to keep the magic within the learner and through the relationships with teacher and students. AI can generate an answer, but AI cannot connect students to their lived experiences or to the career or the profession that they're going to be interested in. AI can show possibilities, but we don't have the learner's voice and what those possibilities are. AI can revise a text prompt, back to your point around emails, but you're not going to get any influence or passion or anything out of that learner's experience. And so we're really trying to think about how AI is enhancing and not replacing what a student is doing. An example of that is, teachers are having kids go write in ChatGPT or write in Gemini and then do all the drafting independently outside of AI so that they can see all their editing. So all their editing is done outside of AI, but their writing is done in AI. So that's something that teacher in that district has allowed because they feel like the power and the impact in the editing is so much more important than the initial draft. We've got some schools, even at the elementary.
You still have to prompt it to draft it, though.
Totally.
So there's still prompts.
And that prompting experience, I think, is going to be really good for their futures. We've got elementary schools that have stoplights in their classrooms right now when we're using AI, when we're not using AI. So you're giving an assessment or you're giving a test, it's a red light. And so we're trying to help students and teachers find ways to really efficiently bring AI into the classroom, but not replace the human connection or the human piece.
When do you see, in the real world now, when do you see people misusing it, and when do you see people that they should be using it?
Yeah, so there's cheating happening, right? There's really there's data and privacy, there's intellectual property being taken all over the place, and a lot of those risks around privacy and data infrastructure are real worries, especially for schools and districts and just responsibility of us to protect teachers too in these settings to make sure that we're keeping kids safe. I think it's really important that educators are getting good professional development on understanding the risks and understanding the safety and understanding the precautions. And then it can't just stop there. We have to transfer that to kids. And we have to help kids know how to efficiently use AI to expand their learning. Once they've anchored their learning, how do they expand it and how do they build upon it? But they still need that foundational knowledge, and it cannot be replaced with, with only technology. And so I'm worried about kids that are not getting those safety precautions or getting those experiences of understanding what's right and what's wrong using AI, that we're going to be setting them up for failure later in life in the ways that they may try to produce or the ways they may try to use AI that isn't appropriate or their own, way of doing it.
What do you think, with that being implemented, what do you think the future of education looks like in 10 years?
Yeah, so I think it's highly tech enabled. I think we are looking at learning ecosystems and not desks and rows or classrooms in schools. I think it is hybrid in the ways that students are engaging across the country and across schools and across districts. I think that students become creators. I think they are creating and they're producing and they're building and they're designing a lot more. That's my hope, at least. I feel like AI becomes co-pilots and teachers become learning facilitators in the way that they're creating new experiences, new settings, and new opportunities for kids to learn differently.
So Leap Innovations is more of the AI, right? And then the distinctive schools. I remember being in your house and hearing you on phone calls and talking about education. I'm like, oh, school, stupid. Now I have such an interest in it now because I have 5 kids. How is distinctive schools and Leap Innovations working together?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Because when you said, we merged with them, I'm like, well, I don't know what that.
Yeah.
I understand what a merger means, but I don't know what that means for you guys.
Yeah. So we acquired Leap Innovations. They're totally separate entities, but they've got a joint venture partnership. Both organizations are partnered and collaborating on a ton of work. So Leap's helping distinctive schools think about artificial intelligence, innovation in their own classrooms, almost as design schools or lab schools in our model, and being able to create and support, the distinctive schools classrooms and educators with a lot of the Leap work and the Leap learning. Distinctive has, taken on the Leap Learning Framework, the Leap Engagement Survey, and so they'll use a lot of the tools that Leap is able to generate and provide for schools and districts, and is a model example for what innovation and personalized learning and AI integration and implementation can look like in a school setting, which has been really exciting to show the country.
I think since COVID, this is a two-part statement, I guess. Since COVID, there has been a lot more talk of homeschooling.
Yeah.
So the school of choice, whether it's public, private, homeschooling. Homeschooling is now a big thing where before it was kind of frowned upon.
Sure.
Maybe. All of those could be controversial as politics, like just as controversial as politics. When you're talking to your neighbors, you're talking to your friends, you're talking to, your friends who have kids, and like, where are you sending your kids to school? How do you think about it as both a former educator and then now, you're a leader of changing education? What is your opinion on all three? And then can homeschool kids get this too? Do you guys have something for homeschooling?
Yeah, so very controversial, Jeff. And I personally believe that every family is going to know what's best for their own kids. And I am a firm believer of school choice. If you know anything about my career in education and the work that I've done in the charter sector and or otherwise, I believe that school choice is a parent and a family choice. That is not something that is accepted or has the same opinion of everyone. But I firmly believe that parents know what their kids need and will find and go through anything to find what their schools need, or what their kids need from a school. I think that it's going to continue to evolve. I brought up many states in legislation right now are looking at school choice vouchers, where that families and taxpayers can decide where their portion of their tax funded dollars can or will go to, whether it be private or homeschool or public schools. And so I want to continue to be an advocate for choice. I want really high quality schools for every single kid in our world. And I believe every family deserves the highest quality choice for their own kids. LEAP works with everyone. We want to impact kids. We want to have an impact on educators. We want to co-design with folks. We want to be innovative in the way that we're showing up over the next decade plus for the way that kids need to learn, and they're demanding us to teach them. But we want to work with all school types and all types of educators and all kids. There is a divide right now in what should be funded, what should not be funded. And I just encourage families to decide what is best for them and to advocate on their behalf for what is best for them.
For homeschool parents that are still listening, how can they get involved with LEAP and encourage their kids, or however they're teaching them to use LEAP and to use AI? What programs or what things where can they go to get help to have their kids have the same type of experience?
Yeah, so there's a ton of exciting energy right now around homeschooling across the country. And there's some awesome advocacy efforts coming from families and parents that have chosen to do something different. We see a lot of learning ecosystems being built in different regions where homeschooling parents are getting together in their region or their city or their state and forming kind of coalition models. And so we've had a couple reach out to us, and we're in talks with a couple different folks to think about adoption of our LEAP learning framework, looking at some of our competencies and skills in our LEAP learning framework. And then, just like I said, we work with all kids and all educators. That includes parents and families. And so if there's opportunities for us to partner with and to bring some of our innovative experience to learning ecosystem or homeschooling advocates or parents or families, we're happy to do so.
As we start to wrap up, what do you think students, teachers, and parents should all know about LEAP, about AI? Like, what is one thing you want to tell them that I think might give them a positive perspective on what's going on in the education world? Yeah,
we are partners. We're partners first. We do not have everything figured out, but we've got a lot of experience and we've got a lot of excitement for what innovative learning experiences can look like for kids. As a teacher, as a school leader, as a systems leader, over the past 15 plus years, I've lived the experience of what educators are doing. I am passionate about educators and what they are bringing to their classrooms and their schools every single day, and LEAP wants to be a partner to all of that. We are co-designers. We want to come and do this work alongside schools and educators and districts and partners and families, and we want to do things in a really human-centered way, grounded in culture, grounded in relationships, grounded in trust, and everything comes from that.
Last question.
Yeah.
What impact does LEAP want to have nationally? Like, what's your goal? What are you guys trying to accomplish? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, so LEAP was founded, like I said, over a decade ago with a very deeply rooted Chicago focus. An amazing founder who led some transformational work in and across Chicagoland. And so we are ready to take that national. We're ready to go have impact across the country with schools and districts that we can continue to use all of our learning and all of our experiences and all of our impact here in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area, and to really scale in a national and a regional way. We've got some really exciting announcements coming up with some regional and district partners across the country that we're going to be expanding our AI coalition, some of our in-district AI fellowship work and programming work, as well as some of our consulting and technical assistance work in schools and districts across the country here in the next couple of months.
That's awesome. And teachers, parents, students that are interested in learning more, where can they go?
Yeah, leapinnovations.org. Contact us, reach out to any of us, or our information page will take you right to all of us. And let's co-design and find ways that we can support you and bring some of our awesome learning and your excitement across the country as educators in schools and districts to bring this work alive and to make it happen.
Let's get students more involved.
Totally.
Let them be more engaged. I think that's going to be a new positive impact for students like you and I who wanted to learn but wanted to learn something that was meaningful to them. So I think I'm excited for students for this.
Yeah, if we design with, for, and by the learner and the educator and the families, and we do it together, we can totally reimagine education for the next 5 decades plus.
I'm excited to see what we do in the future.
Yeah,
awesome.
Thanks
for coming on.
Thank you so much for having
you.
me.